Hey everybody, it's Jason Blah here, and now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, and a bunch of people have asked me, Jason, will you cover this Jon Jones thing? Now, I want to state up front, before I get involved in this, I don't really follow UFC, I don't care, I don't have an interest. Every time I make a video about one of these people or anything involving drugs, everyone, their fanboys, their haters, everyone else jumps in, and they want to attack me over it. Look guys, I don't have an opinion on these people. This is not personal. I have no skin in the game. I'm simply going to talk about what I know about these substances, drug testing, and what I know about PEDs in sports in general. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit. Let's talk about this. All right, Jon Jones, who was already on a suspension for Turinabol, also known as T-Bowl, that's the street name, T-Bowl. Which, speaking of T-Bowl, any of you guys out there who played any sort of college sports in the 80s, 90s, even actually up around just after the millennium, y'all know what I'm talking about. Everybody was on that stuff. Everybody. Why? Because it was easy to get through drug testing. That's why. I mean, you talk about what is the only 3 things a college ball player used to need back in the day to get through testing, right? They could juice their brains out 15 years ago, not get caught. They need a T-Bowl, test suspension, growth hormone, right? That's it. That's it. That builds a 300-plus pound lineman who can pass a drug test. This isn't archaic knowledge either. Anyone who knows anything about testing knows this stuff. This is common knowledge. He got popped for T-Bowl. We're going to talk about clearance times in a minute. Here in December. Now, he was already on a long suspension from T-Bowl. He was on a long suspension. It's my understanding of it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, some people are claiming it's still a residual from his last test that was way beyond the testing window that could possibly exist for any oral known to man, right? This is an oral anabolic. You know, there are no orals that have metabolite testing that goes back more than, 6 weeks tops, 50 days. That's the best testing, right? That's the modern testing. They didn't even have that years ago. So they're going to stand there and claim that it's a possible residual. Well, I'm going to say that's not even remotely possible. It is not even within the realm of believability. And people will say, what do you mean, Jason? Why is it not within the realm of believability? Well, it has to do with the testing times. Okay. For a very, very long time, and I'm talking something like the 70s, all the way up until 2012. Turinabol had a metabolite test window of about 72 hours. You say, what? In other words, after you took the pill, it was only detectable in metabolites for about 72 hours. Now, the biology reasons, molecular biology, the biochem reasons, why, I don't know. It's just something about this particular substance out of all the stuff developed all through the 60s and 70s. For various medical purposes and for athletes and things, because there was some of both. It just happened to be one that the metabolite was really hard to detect. The metabolite disappeared for the testing. We couldn't find it, right? And by we, I mean drug testing bodies, not me personally. I've never owned the equipment to do this. It just was not detectable in urine. Now, a lot of these substances are actually detectable in urine longer than blood. So people say, well, what about blood? No. Something like T-Bowl in the blood? About bloodstream testing? Like 24 hours? And to this day, you still wouldn't find it on blood. Most of your orals, when you've gone more than about, 24 to 36 hours after they've been taken, you can't find them on blood. They actually appear in urine longer than they do in blood. So there's a reason urine testing is done. It's less invasive, and a lot of the orals, which come through the system quick, they're not in the bloodstream very long, right? You can only detect them while they're in their active life. The metabolites get stored in your fat tissue for a little while, and then they get released, and you pee them out, and they can be detected in the urine. All right, T-Bowl could only be seen for 72 hours. That was your detection window, and I'm talking Olympic level and college level, everything else. This is what the Olympic testing could find. All right, if you guys remember back, I covered this a few years ago. Back in 2012, they were going through all the urine samples, remember? They had all these people who tested clean. Well, in 2013, they developed some new metabolite testing. They found a new metabolite test for turinabol. Right? This took 40 years, by the way. It took 40 years to develop a new test for it. It's a tricky metabolite, apparently. 40 years. Well, what happened? They extended that testing window up to something like 40 to 50 days. In other words, they could now detect it, up to like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something in that range, close to 7 weeks after you come off of it. It had previously only been 3 days, 72 hours. Well, when they went back and tested all these Olympic athletes, what did they find? They found, going through old samples from the 2012 games, when this new test was developed in 2013, they tested the new test out on frozen urine samples from the 2012 games. They found over 200 athletes that had the metabolite on the new test for turinabol from their frozen urine sitting in the freezers that had tested clean the year before. So those same samples came up clean. Over 200 of them. So this drug from the 60s was still being used in the Olympics in 2012 and passing. It was passing. Now, people say, well, what happened to those athletes? They didn't suffer consequences. You know why? Because when you're being tested in sports, you're not being tested to see if you're clean. You're testing to see if you can beat the current testing. And to be fair to all the athletes and the lifters and everyone else out there, it's not fair to subject someone to a drug test that they didn't know about. In other words, that's your agreement when you go into sports. You agree to be subject to what the current testing is. And therefore, that gives you the ability. And that's fair. That's fair. You're within the rules. The rules don't state you can't necessarily, let's be honest here, rules don't necessarily say you can't use drugs. They say you can't use detectable drugs, really. You want to get tit for tat. That's what drug testing is. In short, it's not fair to test an athlete with a test that they didn't agree to ahead of time and hold it against them. So since that test didn't even exist, it's not retroactive. You don't get to retroactively ban athletes. Some people say, well, that's not fair. Well, it is fair. Sports are warfare. And people are going to find whatever loopholes they can around the rules while working with it. And so they're going to find ways around the drug testing. That's why I laugh when people say, I think there's clean elite level athletes. Yeah, okay. If you honestly believe that, then I have some real estate for sale. I have some oceanfront property in Arizona that I'll sell you at an amazing price if you believe that there are elite athletes in the top 0.5% in sports in the world who are clean. Do you think that there's some of them? There's a few, maybe half of them. If you believe that, I have something to sell you because you are a naive moron. That's just reality. You have lost touch with reality and the competitiveness of sports. You don't understand the mindset of a champion, and you don't understand how much money and politics is involved. The clean guy doesn't make it to that level. So let's be honest here. Whoever he was going to fight against is probably using stuff too. They're just smarter about it. They just didn't get caught, right? They're up to speed on it. Now that is ridiculous, so that you have a multi-millionaire athlete like Jon Jones, whose coaches and doctors can't figure out that T-Ball has a current new test and put him on something else. All right, now that's his problem. He needs to fire those people. He needs to fire his doctors. He needs to fire his coaches. He needs to fire his drug advisor, which probably is a medical doctor. I mean, when you're talking about athletes at this level, all right, there is an entire network in place of doctors and scientists and other people who are hired out to help them with this stuff, right? Victor Conte told us all of this. He told us all this, didn't he? Yeah, we know it. It's not like it's a big secret. So, I mean, I say things like this and people say, oh, Jason, you're claiming to have special knowledge. No, this is common knowledge if you've bothered to pay attention. If you've paid attention for the past 20 years, this is all common knowledge. This is not a secret. Anyone who pays attention knows it. Just like the stuff I said about turinabol. If you have been watching, if you've been around sports, you knew that everyone was using T-Bol when it was easy to get through the drug testing. It's not secret. Everyone knew it. If you didn't know it, you haven't been in those circles. You haven't been paying attention. Same thing with the Olympics and the T-Bol with the new test in 2012. It was all over CNN. Turinabol was specifically named. They specifically discussed the new metabolite test back in 2013 and all the athletes who got popped. It was all over international news, including in America, CNN, MSNBC. They all covered it. You just weren't paying attention. So it's the same thing here. This stuff is common knowledge. It's common knowledge. And it's also common knowledge. We've had Victor Conte. I mean, look at all the interviews that he had to do after all his arrests and everything else. He discussed all this in detail. All right, this was a guy making a fortune running labs, helping thousands and thousands of athletes, professional athletes, pass their drug testing. And he said there's at least 7 or 8 other people doing the same thing, other companies. So it's a big business. It's everywhere. This is someone who was making millions of dollars doing it, just saying, hey, here's the reality. If you were paying attention, you knew that. If you're paying attention, you already know this. Everyone's dirty in elite levels in sports. And anyone who's denying it, I think you're in denial of human nature, and you're in denial of reality. You're delusional at that point. You've been so starstruck with whatever you've been told about sports, or you want to believe, that it has clouded your judgment. It's clouded your ability for reason and to look at the world objectively and assess it. That's what's happened. They're all using stuff. That's reality. I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying what should be or shouldn't be. I'm just telling you this is the way it is. And if you don't like it, then go do something about it or accept it. But, there's this whole idea that these athletes are all clean. That is a delusional mindset that makes me really, really question people's intelligence and their ability to be rational or reasonable or look at evidence. I'm sorry, I can't see it in any other way, given all of the stuff that we've been able to see and have access to and what people have admitted to over the years. And anyone who just knows how the human body works and exercise science, if you honestly think that even half of elite athletes around the world are clean, you're delusional or you're extremely naive, in which case I have something you need to buy. I have something to sell you because you're gullible. You're going to get took. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.